Good evening, everybody. Lala and I are happy to be here on Wednesday night. We have Jim Hallahan and Mark Rayworth with us tonight. And let me embarrass them for a few seconds because, wow, we had a lot to embarrass them with. So, Jim became an ardent and serious researcher of UFOs in 2013. So, he's been at it for 12 years now. And beginning at the time, he began to have extensive and frequent CE5 contact experiences, a variety of paranormal experiences. And amidst this, he seemed to have draw the attention of certain unidentified agencies and organizations I used to work for. Yeah, no, she never did, but I did. Okay, so anyway, these appearances ultimately led him down the proverbial rabbit hole, served as a catalyst for the abrupt red pill spiritual awakening, culminating in profound esoteric realizations about reality, etc. Jim has written in the past for popular metaphysical website n5d.com on the subjects of dreams, synchronicity, conspiracy theories, psychoactive drugs, etc. And he's a host of the podcast Paranormally Beyond Disclosure, which covers the paranormal and UFO topic. He's a self-proclaimed contrarian. Good, we'll get along. So Mark is like Lala, been in this since the day he was born. All sorts of experiences before he ever started going to school, just like Lala. And she has everything, and so does Mark. So he's but 20 years of experience working with realms of paranormal, including psychic and mediumship demonstrations around the UK. And welcome from the UK. He knows that something was a little off and that there was something bigger happening within the nature of our reality. This led him to become well-versed in the nature of ritual magic and energy harvest with the experience of other entities and seeing them. Mark also led another view on the UFO phenomenon and how your interaction with reality is way more powerful than we are led to believe. Well, no kidding, because we can manifest using our consciousness. The battle for our minds are in full flow nowadays. We were just discussing earlier how active things are getting and are yet to ramp up again. They're ramping up right now. Unless we obtain the mastery of our thought output and realization that we are actually in control of everything. And if a lot of people would wake up, raise their frequency, or have an awakening or whatever, this planet could be a Garden of Eden again. Just figure out how to get there. The two of us, we're not angels, but I'll tell you what, it is a whole lot better on this side of the spiritual battle than it is on the other side, pretending like none of this exists at all. Jim, I called you out first, so let you go first. Tell us about you and what you're doing.
I'm the host of Paranormally Beyond Disclosure. I don't have that much of a background. I mean, aside from the Gangstalking and the CE5 experiences, I would just consider myself a mere thinker, in this field with some unique ideas maybe that I'm trying to bring to the table. And the experiences that I've had, I don't think in and of themselves are that important, but the implications of some of them, I think, were important. I feel like I came in direct contact with the reality of mind control, for one. I feel like I witnessed firsthand the extent of mind control, which I think is well beyond what most of us understand. I think we're all deluded because of it. I think everybody in the field is routinely being subjected to electronic interference or psychic interference. And the stream of their thoughts on a daily basis is not always their own.
Right.
And this is the problem. I think this is one of the biggest problems that we have to wake up to. And I think a lot of people know about this problem. I think a lot of people understand, that all our thoughts are our own, etc. But yet these same people in the next moment will be identifying with every single thought that comes into their mind. And I know that because that's just the nature of the undisciplined mind. You know,
Yeah.
we're routinely identifying and stepping into every thought and every emotion without thinking about it, because consciousness is almost dreamlike. You know, thoughts come into our mind, and we just step right into them without thinking. We don't, you know, we don't question them. We are them. We think we are the thoughts, and that's what has to be rectified. I think we need to all start recognizing thought as thought and recognize the implications of that. And anyway, that's one of the. I don't want to trail on and on with this, but that's one of the implications, I think, of my experiences, is that the reality of mind control is pervasive, and I think it's the primary mechanism of control in general. I think how they're doing everything is through mind control. I think it's less about infiltration and it's more about influencing the minds of the people in power rather than actually putting in their own people. I think the movie. Say that again. Sorry, one more time, Bob. Couldn't hear that.
It's certainly safer than trying to take over. Just as
Right. Yeah, it's more covert, and I think that explains, you know, some of the, you know, inability that we've had to kind of pin stuff down. I think that explains everything. I think the movies that we're seeing, you know, that have elements in them that contain certain aspects of the agenda. I think if you would pull the curtain down, you would find that the people behind those films, the producers, the directors, etc., they don't actually know. They're actually not at a deep level, but everything, all the creative ideas that are going into those films are being streamed straight into them and into the movie making. And I think that's something that's not real understood by a lot of people. I think that we think.
I think, Jim, we can point out several movies that everybody in this kind of field will know. It's now that things have gone further along, it's pretty clear that the secret keepers and the intelligence community, whoever, actually were behind the scripts they were offered. It's just amazing. So the other thing I wanted to tell you is, as I got deeper into this, I was sleeping and wearing a blindfold mask, which I often do. And I woke and forgot I had the blindfold mask on, but I was seeing right through it, doing the blindfold seeing. And pretty soon this face appeared in front of me, and it was somebody looking at me. Unfortunately for him, I recognized his face and knew the room he was in at Fort Meade. So,
oh, wow.
You know, they really are watching people who are out here and active. Great, Mark.
Yeah.
What you got going on? I bet you're as interesting as Jim is, because this is going to be an interesting conversation.
Same as Layla, really. From a background of experiencing and just coming into this reality with a blueprint, which has always been there in the back of my mind. So I've pretty much known which way things are running for quite some time. And obviously, my life got thrown into the paranormal, the UFO, the mediumship, and I think it's the path that we take to kind of harness our skills and remember who we are, basically. So that's the kind of direction I took, particularly with the mediumship then, and identifying certain things with the connection of mediumship and the loved ones that come through are not always, I feel, the ones are the loved ones. I feel that sometimes there are impersonators there, which we can't validate sometimes. But if you're good, you can sense the vibration, as you know, Layla. So we know that, again, when they try and feed on emotional energy and stuff, they also use these kind of settings, a mediumistic setting with an audience, and where else best when you've got a lot of grief going on and stuff like that. It's a really good feed for them. So
all these trauma-like things, they help open your abilities and make you more vulnerable, especially if you're totally untrained.
That's right.
It's kind of amazing. What you got?
Yeah.
You got a question?
Were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Damn.
Oh no, my man.
Oh my
Hey,
God.
interact with him. Come on.
Jeez. Go ahead. Sorry. Did you want to say more? Because I do have a question.
Yeah. I'll ask away because
I like to ask everybody. This is for both you guys. What is the craziest experience that you've ever had in your whole life, or someone you know that went through it? It could be paranormal or aliens, UFO, whatever. I've had a lot of really strange, crazy experiences, so I like to feel better about myself. Is what I'm saying.
I've got some crazy ones.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Mark? Yeah, yours are probably crazier than mine.
Pick one, really. Could be UFO.
I like paranormal.
UFO sighting.
I like the paranormal or demonic better.
So Mark has a great experience while he was a Freemason. That's the other part of his background that I don't think was mentioned here. Mark is an ex-Freemason and had an experience witnessing a sudden manifestation of reptilians during a Masonic ritual.
It was during, I've spoken publicly about this now anyway, doing a 3rd degree ritual. I was about 6 feet away from the checkered floor. It was in a smaller temple, and me being from the mediumistic background I am, and when I see lights, I get kind of excited, and I'm like, "Oh, look at that!" Like Mark saw a butterfly, and then all of a sudden on the floor there was like white lights going across the checkered floor with looked like they had tails on them, and they were going back and forth. And I thought, "Oh, that's nice." And when I looked up, there were 3 froggy, snake-headed beings there.
Yes.
2 had their backs turned to me, and one was looking directly at me, the one which is on the right. And it had white skin with like black spots, like a Dalmatian. And his shoulders went all the way into his head, basically. There was no shoulders. He was standing upright and just staring at me. And I remember looking at it, staring, and there was no fear. I just couldn't process it for a while because it was the first time I seen something like that so up close. And it must have went on for about 20 seconds that I was looking at it, and it was looking directly at me because I remember his eyelashes. He had like these blonde eyelashes I could see.
Wow.
And this ceremony is normally taking place in the dark, but for that night, the light where the organ is couldn't be switched off. So it lit up the room slightly, which allowed to see more. So that from there on, it was like an elephant in the living room. I asked one person about it, and they had no idea. So that was one of my crazy ones. That one I think about nearly every day.
Oh my God! Have you ever heard of them colored like that, the white and black? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I have heard before that the white ones are royalty. I think Simon Parks has said this.
Especially if they have a hood on.
Yeah.
Especially if they have a hood on.
Or I've also heard like about a crown of horns or something as being one of the markers of royalty or something like that. Huh. But I'm not sure, the veracity of that.
Their skin looked like, do you know when the royals wear that white furry thing? That's what their skin looked like. So maybe it's a representation of their skin and that, but it exactly like that. So, and I can't tell you if they were good or bad. I don't know. They were just beings that turned up. But a friend of mine sent me a passage from Revelations, which come under the quote, 3 frog-like beings, which were unclean spirits. And I forgot, these are frogs' mouths. These beings, the big wide frogs' mouths and snaky eyes. So I call them the froggy snakes now.
So there wasn't any vibe. There wasn't any, because normally people will describe, with reptilians like a vibe that comes off them, like an evil vibe. It feels like most of the experiences that people have had with reptilians, they feel something. But in this one, you didn't feel anything.
Didn't feel nothing. No, I couldn't process it properly. So it was just staring. It was a new thing, but it hasn't left me from that day. Every day, it's there rent free. So I know by looking into things as well, the way Freemasonry used to work back in the ancient days is, it used to connect the physical, the mental, and the spiritual realms together. So, and the temples are acoustically built, and they used to try and connect with all the nature spirits back in the day in the Egyptian rite and stuff like that. So, I think that is still a possibility there, but I don't think it's allowed to happen unless it happens in higher order somewhere. But yeah.
I have a question. You don't have to answer it. Some people are just uncomfortable asking. I'm O negative. Are you an RH negative? Because my theory is RH negatives these things are drawn to us a little more.
I'm an O.
You're
O
O
negative?
Are you?
Yeah, so is she. So is she.
Bam.
I don't know my blood type, but I have heard just recently that the deal with RH negative, according to, I don't know if you've heard of James Casbolt, someone who's been on Bases, or the early Bases series. He said something, and I think he heard this on the inside, that it has to do with high concentrations of copper in the blood.
Yep.
Have you heard that too? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Was it him that mentioned as well that the O blood type is the most ancient, so they can use the O blood type in any blood type if you're
I think he did say that. Yeah. Yeah, that may have been him. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting.
It's all frequency, isn't it? In the end. So,
and we can't get it from anybody else. It has to be from our kind. And women having babies, I mean, if it's with a different partner that's not like us, there's a whole thing you got to go through, and it's very interesting. Okay, I'll shut up. Sorry.
You're good. You're good. You're doing great.
In a little bit, I do want to get into gangstalking in a little bit. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, I will talk about it. It triggers my anxiety a little bit because it was a fucking hellish thing. I mean, it was a years long, campaign of psychological harassment. So it's talking about it brings up the anxiety, but I've never talked about it before, but I'm willing to go into it for the first time.
You're in a safe place, I promise you.
Yeah. Are they still bothering you? Or?
No, well, no. Although they will make a reappearance, or at least they did several years back, if I sort of step outside a certain boundary. So I attempted to get back into it. Once it ended, and by the way, it ended when I stopped caring, and I completely detached from caring about it. I just decided I was going to be oblivious to all of it, and just let it happen. I'm not going to look for them. I'm not going to, try to do anything about it. Which I think is the key. If anyone's listening right now and knows anyone that's a TI or is a TI themselves, it's all psychological, So if you stop reacting to it, then they're just expending massive resources for no reason. It's all to. I think there's spiritual implications to it. I think they are interrupting your spiritual development in a serious way with the use of fear and impressing fear and keeping you in that low vibe state. But anyway, what was the question again? I'm losing track here.
I just want to know a little bit about it. I think I've been through something similar.
Oh yes.
But I never looked into it.
There is a lot of overlap with like the MIB phenomenon. It is intimidation. It starts out seemingly just as surveillance, which I don't even know how I picked up on it at the time. I think it was just intuition. I knew that there were people following me. I began to test this and subject these people to whatever I could think of to kind of observe, something that would tell me that they were actually following me. And then at that point, there's different phases of it. There's different stages of it. Once I started to kind of do things and be unpredictable. And when they were like, they would be tailing behind me, and I thought for sure it was them, and I would slow down in order to kind of reveal. I mean, there's a number of sort of techniques that you can do to kind of establish, you know, whether someone is following you or not. If you slow down enough, most people will pass you. You know, if you slow down like 20 miles an hour, you know, most people are going to pass you by. So I was having tons of experiences where it was just clearly being demonstrated that I was being surveilled and followed, you know. And then it became I became real irate because you don't know it's gang stalking at first. I wasn't having any kind of, you know, UFO experiences. The only thing that I could think that it could be was maybe it was the DEA or something. You know, I had a past drug history where I was an opiate addict for 5 years, but like well before that, you know, I was totally clean at the time, and so I thought it was the DEA, and they were surveilling me, and you know, it was all about that, and I was really mad about it because I wasn't doing anything, you know, and I felt like I was being watched. So I started to just kind of fight back and decided that I could make this really expensive for them, you know, by burning all of their agents, you know, kind of exposing them, letting them know that I know who's involved and that they're, you know, watching me, so that they would have to then replace them, you know, with a new person, you know. And then everything shifted at that point, and it became what I refer to as like the hot phase, where it's also known as bumper lock surveillance. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, Bob. It's like a type of surveillance where they're watching you, but they let you know it. You know, it's more like intimidation. You know, that they're driving by you, they're giving you mean glances. They've all got sunglasses on, and they're trying to be intimidating. They're trying to like almost surround you everywhere you go. You know, they turn up. They do a lot of vehicular things. You know, they will box you in. Someone will get in front of you, someone will get beside you in the passing lane, and then someone beside you, and they will slow down, and then they'll all be kind of staring at you, you know, while this is going on. So it gets kind of crazy like that, and then, you know, they start ratcheting it up, you know, and eventually they start doing what I think are near miss accidents or staged near miss accidents. Some TIs think that they're actually trying to kill them. You know, they're actually
just one second. TI is, for everybody who doesn't know, is targeted individual.
Right. Yeah, that's the terminology. And we call the people who are involved in it, which we really don't know who they are. You know, I have an inkling that because of one particular interaction I had with one of them who seemed like he was involved, he had a license plate with the Order of the Eastern Star logo on it, which is a Freemasonry affiliated organization. I don't know if you can bring that up or if you Google stuff, but other TIs have thought that Freemasons are involved, or that some contingent of maybe not, you know, Blue Lodge Freemasonry, but some level of Freemasonry. But maybe not. I mean, nobody really knows. They obviously have to have some kind of government complicity to do what they do, you know, to sort of have the free reign that they have doing what they do. It seems like in many cases, and this was the case with me, it seems like law enforcement somehow becomes involved. And they must be sort of fabricating information about you to pass down to those levels, which justifies it. You know, it can't be. Law enforcement can't be involved and be given, you know, the true agenda of what's going on. So there has to be something like that, some kind of ostensible reason why you're being watched. You know, maybe domestic terrorism or something like that. Maybe they fabricate some kind of email or something that you're involved with this, and it justifies it to the lower level people. So it gets really crazy, and then, you know, it gets to a point where, and every TI is like this, that they don't know what's going on. You know, no one ever explains anything to you, so it's just complete confusion. You're being surveilled. It goes on and on and on and on for years, and no one ever tells you anything. You know, so a lot of them kind of go crazy, and that's actually part of the idea. You know, it's meant to kind of drive you crazy. It may be meant to get you to lash out at the perpetrators, at which then they will pounce upon you and, arrest you and, prosecute you and get you thrown in jail. But it gets really crazy, and then it gets to the point where you realize that it can't be, your hypothesis. Mine was, that it's the DEA, because they're just doing too many things that are just way outside the bounds of what is ordinary, for that kind of type of surveillance. There's directed energy weapons that are used with gang stalking. I didn't experience that, at least to my knowledge, that much. There was one particular instance where, and by this point in gang stalking, I was starting to have contact, and that's the other thing, that correlates with this. I started to have contact experiences, CE5 experiences during this. I started to realize I was starting to have a spiritual awakening, as a result of this. This was kind of sending me down the rabbit hole. I was, getting into the spiritual side of things, and realizing that I might, be, I hate to use the word special, but, different in some kind of way. And then I, found out about the starseed phenomenon, and that's kind of how I got into CE5. I went out there one night, kind of in a mode of desperation, during the midst of this, and asked for a sighting, and immediately a kind of meteor-like or meteor-looking sort of thing flies by.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
How long did this level of terror go on? How long before you had the experience?
How long did the level of terror go on before I had the CE5 experience?
Yes.
Probably about a year, or maybe 6 months to a year.
Okay, so in that year, did you have repeated moments of really near panic terror?
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It was
All right,
terrifying.
so it's kind of well known now, especially since all the CIA stuff and Stargate and all these other things that went on, that when you get close to or right over the level of dissociation, and terror and trauma, you develop abilities.
Yeah, Bob. Wow. So that is
It's well known.
an aspect of this that has thus far eluded my attention, but that is absolutely true. I did
The
not
most
put those
famous
two
remote
things together.
viewer that I
Yeah.
have ever heard of, ever, was Joe McMoneagle. And he's still alive and at Monroe Institute. So he went through 18 years of hell at home. And we left home at 18 and joined the armed services. And pretty soon he was noticed by his commanding officers as if he was in a unit, they never stepped on a landmine. They never got shot. They were all made it back without even getting wounded. And pretty soon they figured it out, and he got passed up to the people who were doing remote viewing, psionics, we call it now, and so forth. So this is well known, especially to the government.
Yeah. So, yeah, my head's kind of blowing up here listening to it, because it was during this period that I started to develop psychic abilities.
Yeah, of course.
I started to get telepathy and visions, and I started seeing these things which I don't even know what to call them. I call them astral light signals. These little sort of sparks of light that are not actually out there in the world. I'm seeing them like in my own, visual spectrum. Which became a kind of communication, actually, from something, a kind of rudimentary communication, that they would time these things out with my thoughts, or even stuff that I was watching on television to kind of indicate significance, with that particular thing. And a kind of communication started to develop, and all this is happening. Yeah. Yeah, this is all coming together. I was just actually listening to Whitley Strieber,
Good place to listen.
and he made the quote, suffering has something to do with these extraordinary, powerful states. I don't fully understand why. I don't know if you, Mark, have any insight into that, as to why suffering yeah, because on the one hand, you would think that that would kind of stifle your energy field, that you would, under fear and suffering, your energy contracts, and pulls inward and lowers your frequency. So what's the paradox? Why does it seem to, I've never heard a good explanation for why,
I
suffering.
haven't got one, but I've witnessed it, and I've witnessed it with myself, and I've gone through lower stuff, grief and stuff. I've witnessed lots of people as well coming into the kind of psychic world. They've gone through divorce, or they've lost a parent, and they've looked down the psychic path, and they've become really good psychics and mediums.
Yeah.
And sometimes that just throws them on to the path that they're meant to be on. But there is something to do with the suffering that's kind of like a purging or a clearing of those energies. So we're not suppressing them, and we kind of letting them out. We're focusing it into something useful instead of just feeling.
Well, if you think about it, your brain is turning on a radar so that you can protect yourself.
That's right. Yeah. So, and I said the net.
Yeah.
It's the Wi-Fi's on, and it's reaching out.
Exactly.
Trying to control everything and keep yourself
Jim,
safe.
I want you to go find a video called the Montauk Project, and this is a horrible story of how the government used it. Horrible.
I have things in the past about that. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I delved into that a little while, years ago, and yeah, absolutely. That definitely ties into this. Well, one thing that suffering does is it causes disassociation from the physical body.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's a piece of the puzzle. But
Especially,
I'm not.
Especially if you dissociate enough where your person goes into hiding, and the warrior soldier comes out and takes your place. For example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So I suppose it's within those vulnerable points that we subconsciously feel that anything is possible, and we look for it. Same if we lose a pet or a family member, then in those points we believe that we can actually leave the body and communicate with them or speak to them. It's a possibility then, but when we fall back into our conscious everyday minds, the logic drops in, the doubt for some people drops in, that they rationalize things off in a logical way, which not keeping the belief going. So totally get that. I'm totally seen it. Same as you, Leila. Yeah. What's your thought on that?
I mean, I kind of agree with everything. I mean, when I lost my parents and my son's father a couple years ago, I kind of almost did lose my mind, and I was very traumatized, and didn't have help, so it was all just there, But that's when things amped up with the paranormal.
That's right.
stuff.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
It was crazy, and all this other stuff. But that's also when I stopped hiding from myself
And her abilities.
and I decided to help others. People that have lost others, I wanted them to not hurt either. So that's when I started doing more readings for free online and getting on track. And then I met him, and then I'm doing this.
Well, her guardians told her who to go read, and she was told by her guardians to read me.
Well, I'm super shy, so they just kind of push me to certain people,
Yeah.
But I agree with everything that you guys are saying. It's strange. I don't understand it, but it happens.
Yeah.
I guess you have to have an extreme to make a huge turn.
Yeah.
But she's pretty much dealt with trauma her whole life. But the last few years before we knew each other, it was rough.
Yeah.
I'm tough.
She is tough.
I mean, I gotta live with you. So.
Exactly. I mean, I'm such a mean guy.
How did you guys get together?
Yeah, how did you meet?
So I saw him on Bases, on Miles Johnston's channel Bases, And some of what he was saying really resonated with me. He was questioning the whole medium thing, and he had, some alternative outlooks into that, which kind of jive with my thinking on the subject. And yeah, he just kind of stuck in my mind. And then eventually, I just decided eventually I'm going to invite him on the podcast, and then eventually did. And then that's kind of how we got connected. And
yeah. Been in touch ever since.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we're planning on starting another podcast actually in the near future, hopefully.
Yeah.
What's that going to be about? Is there a certain topic, or is it just open for anything?
I mean, it's kind of open-ended at this point. It's going to be maybe centered in terms of, it's going to be centered on consciousness research, I think, and it's exploring, I think, all the different contact modalities, out-of-body experiences, mediumship, but looking at
multi-dimensional stuff.
Yeah, all the multidimensional stuff, metaphysical phenomena, but really kind of questioning everything that we think we know about them. I think that's going to be one of the fundamental things. It's going to be a kind of like epistemological kind of approach to that subject matter. How do we really know? I'm concerned that the entire underpinning of all of these fields, the metaphysical community, etc., all of our beliefs about everything have been influenced by malevolent actors. And that we have to go through, I think, and it has yet to happen, we have to go through everything. I think we have to revise everything or relook at all of our thinking and beliefs and ideas about everything in light of what we know now about the extent of the manipulation, but yeah, just in general, it's open-ended at this point. We're not exactly sure what we're going to do specifically, but those are some ideas that are at the core of it.
I think that's good. I think that should be talked about. It's I mean, when I hear him, I don't really do the debating online, but he goes online. Sometimes they talk about this stuff, and it's so heavy and angry, and oh my god, you know what I mean?
Word.
So I think if you go at it in a peaceful or balanced way, so people can get information. That's all you want. You just want information, and you make your own decision.
Well, if you want to raise your frequency, what choice do you have? You can't go at it angry.
Yeah, I think, in order to discover and learn anyway, you kind of have to take a neutral stance and not invest yourself heavily into any set of ideas. And if we all did that, there would be no tension. If we all just, this is my hypothesis that I think is strongest, as to what's going on here. But I could be wrong. If we thought like that, if we were kind of more thoughtful and maybe even scientific about it, I think it would really improve things. Because it's really difficult to know which way is up and which way is down, in all these fields. I think there's been such manipulation and interference in our belief structures around this that that no one can really be that confident that they've gotten everything right. I think we should all have a disposition of, we probably have a ton of shit wrong, and let's start there, and let's have some communication, and hashing out of what we think, and this is beneficial, to do it Socratically, without fighting, so that we can get to the truth.
Well, the Socratic method is great. Just ask the right questions and listen to what people come up with. It absolutely. Yeah. I learned all my mathematics through the Socratic method because of where I went. I was lucky. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I have a question real quick about dreams. So I have really weird, I call them visitation dreams. I think they're more than just regular dreams, right? Do you guys have visitations in your dreams? And also, I've been looking, I know it's on TikTok, but whatever. A lot of people all over the world have visitations from these black-eyed beings that once you realize you're in a dream, they don't like that and they change, you know?
I have exactly that.
Dude, me
I
too.
can relate to that, yeah.
Yeah.
I get out the body a lot and lucid within there sometimes. So I've seen those beings, and kind of when you become conscious of what they are, they kind of stop, and it's like as if they can't play that role anymore that they're trying to play, like dream characters, and they just freeze, the eyes go, and everything's gone. So I've seen that out there, but through lucid dreaming and out of body, it kind of made me question the whole dream thing, and if there are such things as actual dreams, because sometimes when we're in a dream and it's like a movie and we're going along with it and we see characters in a dream that we recognize, but we don't really know them, but we're just going along with this dream. And I think when we sleep that we literally, our consciousness comes out of this place and we visit different versions of ourselves and experience those versions of ourselves for a moment, which gives the recognition of the characters there, because that version of ourselves knows those characters. I also think it happens when we daydream in the car, when we're driving from A to B and we can't remember getting from A to B. I believe that's when another version of ourselves has come in and has taken over, and we've gone elsewhere for that moment. So it's all, I think it's all tied in, and those characters that come in then, and the dreams can be manipulated, because I believe our dreams can be manipulated for a low vibrational feed sometimes as well, when be influenced in that way. So I think it's all about mastery in the end with our minds, I think, and getting ourselves there back to where we was, basically, I think. So I get that quite a lot. They don't seem to bother me anymore since I realized, and I don't feel them.
Okay, yeah, you're the second person to say that.
Last night.
Yeah, I want to know.
There's a single right there.
Yeah, I want to know what they are. I shouldn't probably let it go, but I want to know what's going on. Are they part of the whole shadow people thing? Some people think that. Like my friend last night, I was on his show, and he was talking about how he thinks they're connected. The shadow people are connected to the black guide beings, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's so many different opinions on shadow people. Some think it's interdimensional or alien or paranormal. So what do you guys think?
I think they just appear as a shadow. I think it could be anything. I think when we see a shadow being, and this is normally right, the apparition that you see in your peripherals, and it appears dark, but I've always thought that it could be anything. I think it just appears dark. I think it's just natural that when you see anything, in the non-physical, in your peripherals, it appears that way. I think, anyway. Although I have seen some variation with that. I have seen some that have a kind of shimmering sort of quality to it, which might indicate some kind of difference in the NHI that it is. But I don't know. That's one thought that I've had about it. I think we're wrong to sort of classify them as like one sort of group of being, like these are the shadow beings. And I think when we see a shadow being, it could be any number of things. I think there's a range of different possibilities. I also think there's huge manipulation going on in the dreamscape. That's kind of my angle of looking at dreams. I think there's massive stuff going on that they're doing with our dreams. I think in a sense, when you're dreaming, your subconscious is wide open, to programming.
Yeah.
And I frankly wonder that all of these scenarios, that we're experiencing in our dreams, if they are in some way, it seems possible to me that they could be programming, our subconscious, or
Mhm.
affecting
a lot
us
of dark
somehow.
magic. Sorry.
Yeah, which carries over into the waking world.
Right.
I've noticed that many times where and this is just I think an interesting observation. Where you have a dream, and the energy of that dream and what happened in that dream still has an effect when you're awake and you're going about your day. I'm sure we've all had dreams about that, and sometimes even will affect your decision making. And I've had dreams like that where I decided to go out and party one night because I had like this really exciting dream, like a New Year's party or something, and just felt like really wanting to be social that day after, having that dream. And I don't know what was going on with that or why they would want me to do that, but I think it's a subtle way that they can influence our behavior and maybe even decision making in the real world. And it may even go way deeper than that. It might be, they might be able to strongly program things into us while we're dreaming. But anyway, there's some thoughts about that. I don't know if Mark, if you have any about dream manipulation.
I agree with all that you said. I think it is a kind of construct that brings us close to the darker entities and, with us in general. I know a lot of dark magic is done on the astral to affect people here.
Yeah.
But just do it here. And I think the astral is a kind of false construct, an intelligent construct, which is close to the kind of shadow matrix, where they kind of control things from. So I think there's a lot of manipulation that comes from there, and that's where they, in my opinion, that's where they control the people, the soulless people, which are here, like people in government, to control the masses for them and keep the looping going.
And it would also seem to affect your manifestation, right? Because especially people within the spiritual and metaphysical communities who have this attached belief regarding dreams, that dreams are significant and dreams have portent and predictive power, on what's going to happen. I think there's something going on there with that, and so many people think, they have a dream that they're in a car accident, that, oh no, I'm going to be, in an accident or something like that. And that influences your consciousness, and potentially, therefore what you will manifest, because you're worried about it. And it's so diluted, though, frankly, because, clearly 99.99999% of dream scenarios never come true. Despite the existence of true prognostic dreams and predictive dreams, the vast majority of them never ever come to fruition. So it's really diluted that most people, kind of take their dreams so seriously, as if they have some kind of bearing on, reality and what's going to happen. Not that they don't sometimes, but they just clearly can't be used as a guide in any kind of way, because the vast majority of them, are just not pertinent at all to real world events.
I think it's a lot of symbolism I've learned. Sometimes, I've had dreams that were very literal and usually warnings, but most of the time it's very symbolic. It's always a message. Well, I should say, I really do have a lot of dreams that are messages. Honestly, I don't just have cool, stupid dreams, unfortunately. But it'll be like some lemon or some bullshit, and I'll have to wake up and decode it. Of course, I never do until like months later, or it already happened. So that pisses me off. But
she's become a Google warrior on her dreams.
But it's interesting. And have you guys ever had dreams where something's trying to give you food at all? Does that happen, you guys? Isn't that like they lock you in that way?
So I can tell you about one dream that I had where somebody gave me something, and so this was an interesting dream because it kind of revealed to me the nature of dream manipulation. This was right after I started having interactions telepathically and otherwise with entities. And at one point in time, I kind of lashed out against this one entity that I knew was a negative entity, and said some things and kind of rubbed it in that you essentially that I'm in the right and you're so clearly in the wrong, as far as what you're doing, and you think that it's in your best interest, but you don't realize that, everything is interconnected, or you're blind to that fact. I won't get into the whole diatribe, but I kind of railed mentally, thinking thoughts to this entity, because I know that they're listening. This whole, diatribe about, why it's clearly demonstrably in the wrong as far as, what it's the agenda that's trying to carry out, and how it's actually not serving its own interests. And that night I got this really bizarre dream, kind of twisted dream. I think that's how for sure, when a dream is got a really kind of twisted, dark nature to it, that it's clearly a manipulated dream. I was at some kind of get together, some kind of outdoor event, and mind you, I was vegan at the time. So I'm standing there, and it's like an outdoor event, and I'm eating. I realize all of a sudden I'm eating chicken, as a vegan, and I'm kind of shocked by this. Oh my God, how did I not realize, that I've been eating chicken all this time? And I was just kind of perplexed. And then I looked down, and all of a sudden, the 2 pieces of chicken that I had in my hands, transmogrified into 2 fetuses.
Oh,
weird fetuses, with abnormally large heads type fetuses. And so kind of like made this something, created a scenario to kind of freak me out, like I had been eating a human child, or some kind of hybrid child, or something like this. And I wondered if there wasn't, something else there symbolically or otherwise, as to, I was consuming this thing, I think that's where you're getting at, like you have dreams where you're given something to eat and then you consume it.
I always have, well, no, a couple times there's this entity that sometimes bothers me in my sleep and while I'm awake, and it tries to give me food, but the food has strands of hair in it. And this is new, so I'm not too familiar with it, but I've looked it up, and it's, of course, not good.
Yeah, it's a spiritual roofie.
Maybe there's some kind of implications taking in something that was given to you. Like I don't know. Like I don't fully understand all of the ins and outs of, if something is given to us in the dream and we accept that thing and we consume that thing, whether there could be some kind of metaphysical or spiritual consequences to that, maybe. It's not clear to me that can't happen.
I think a lot of dreams mirror our subconscious and our traumas, and sometimes the entities actually, as bad as they actually work for us sometimes in making us act up and realize what the things we are doing sometimes. I remember I woke up one night, and it was before I think Miles Johnson. I've been speaking to Miles Johnson earlier on in the evening, and I woke up and there was an entity on my bed, going back to the big thick black entity, and I was so tired. I just pulled it back and I looked at him and I went, "Fuck off." I just went to sleep, and I think that's the best remedy for them, because when you're not giving them nothing, they got nothing to feed on. So,
precisely.
I was just too tired.
Don't engage at all, and don't look at them as an adversary. I think it's really fundamentally important, and this, in my own experience, seems to have changed things massively for me. Changing your perspective of the dark forces, rather than looking at them as an enemy, maybe changing your perception of them as more like an obstacle, or just something that, or like a wild animal. I mean, it's at the level of consciousness that it's at, and it's going to just behave according to that level of consciousness. And it's just like a wild animal or a force of nature, you know, a tornado or something. It's going to do what it does. So best not, you know, take anything personal, you know, about it, you know, just, you know, if you have a really bad manipulated dream, you know, or something, just notice it, you know, and don't really, you know, just keep focusing on, you know, what you need to do and not mind it. And I think that that kind of does take away their power, you know, when you start to regard them in that kind of way.
Yeah,
That's true.
definitely.
Do you want to ask?
No, good. Keep going.
Well, we don't have much time left, but at the end, I do want you to tell everybody, you know, where they can reach you, any websites, books, anything. But my last question is for both of you. What is something you've learned in your life that's very important to you that you would like to share with everybody?
Oh, that's a great question.
Thank you. I only do good questions.
I mean, this might sound a little trite, but I think the most important thing is oneness, by far. I think the reality that we are all one single thing, one single consciousness field, is tremendously by far the most important thing. And you know, I mean, many people understand this and know this, but I don't think I think there's a deeper level of knowing this, that once you get to this deeper level of knowing this, it does change everything, in a profound way. And that's what the aliens normally say, you know. I mean, there are so many interesting contact experiences when the aliens are asked, you know, like one person that I was just listening to, he asked the aliens, "What is the secret to life?" And they told him, "All is one," and just left it at that. They didn't add anything, just simply all is one, and that was the only thing that they've felt to say. And I think that you know, that hints at the significance of it. But anyway, yeah. What about you, Mark?
Very simple, very quick. Plays into same as what Jim said there. Self-realization and the realization of our own power, and the realization that we control absolutely everything. It's our minds that go astray that gives the power away to allow things to be manipulated and controlled. But we are always in control of that, and it's just understanding that. That's my thing. Yeah. So back to the oneness. Back to the
Well, the thing I keep having to remind myself of is the things I have and the whatever money, whatever. I don't get to carry them with me. I only get to carry me and back to the universal consciousness. And it's better to do better than I used to do. Every day I want to do better than the day I did before.
Yeah.
Yeah, the spiritual is by far more important than anything that happens in the physical. You know, we've lost all context of that reality. You know, I mean, this physical existence is, you know, a bit of a fleeting moment, you know, in a long expanse of conscious experience. And if we're only focusing on the physical, you know, and material satisfaction in this life, I mean, you're basically you're trading. I like to use the analogy. You're trading like a roller skate for a Ferrari in terms of focusing on the physical and not the spiritual. You know, and it's consequential. You know, because we're going to disembody at some point, and you want to be at a reasonably high frequency when you do that. You know.
Yeah.
And that could happen at any time, you know. I mean, that could happen tomorrow. And so I think all your energy and focus should be put into, you know, spiritual development and spiritual growth. And I mean, this sounds trite, but yeah, but
Tell us where people can find you and where you want them to look at you and so forth and so on, see what you're doing, keep up with you.
Yeah, go on, Jim.
So I mean, I can be found on Facebook. If you search Jim Hallahan, you will find me. Our podcast is Paranormally. That's a mix of the words paranormal and anomaly. PARANOMALY. Beyond Disclosure. And yeah, our podcast can be found on YouTube. It can be found on Facebook, Spotify. And yeah, that's about all I have for contact information.
Mark, anything to add?
Just Facebook with me as well. I post everything on there that I'm kind of doing. So if I'm doing public speaking or anything, it all goes on there. Or podcast with these guys, it goes on there. So
We gotta have you guys back again.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much to talk about with you guys. This is, I have ADD, so I'm sorry, by the way. I bounced everywhere, but this is so fun. I really enjoyed it a lot with both of you. So
Let me tell you about her ADD. She finds every guess. I get 1 out of 100, and they are always amazing because she uses her intuition.
yeah.
So anyway, listen, thank you guys. It was fun. I'm glad we got to talk. Glad we got to know each other a little bit. We need to get to know each other a little bit. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Lala and I can look at the smile on her face. We definitely had a good time tonight, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it.
That was wonderful.
You guys, thank you.